Cool. Well, hey, thank you guys for making it. This is a closed session between all of the DigZ, partners, aka DigZ brokers, who use DigZ to generate deals. And today, it's more like a powwow where we're going to sit down and kind of just trade some of the stuff that we've learned, some of the stuff that you've observed and how you've overcame, or any insights and revelations that you've had. I want to thank you on behalf of DigZ, and I'm sure all of the brokers will appreciate this, for you spending the time to sit down and share this information with us. I think we can all benefit. I'm sure I've done these type of panels before, and usually even the panelists, hey, I learned something from this other person who was in the panel. That was a great idea. So I hope you guys get a ton of value from this. So we're going to talk about secrets from brokers that are closing more deals. So we're going to get started now. I'm your host, so I'm going to just introduce myself briefly. I'm Andrew Bermudez. I was a former broker at Lee & Associates. I was there from 1999 to 2012. Then I left. I co-founded DigZ. We are a listing service, essentially, that helps generate tenant buyers and brokers, helping them find more clients to represent, or helping those listing brokers move their properties faster through different technology. And we are funded actually by the board member of Zillow, the former VP of product at LoopNet, the former CEO of Apple Computer, Gil Amelio, who bought Next Computer and brought Steve Jobs back. And then we have a bunch of angels and VCs too that have really been influential in helping us build a product that you guys hopefully will continue to enjoy and get better over time. So I'm going to go over an overview. Today we're going to go over introductions, so that way we all know who each other is. We're going to discuss challenges and frustrations that we've had, starting out with DigZ, and then we're going to go over insights and solutions. Then we're going to open up the forum for people who want to ask questions. So let me just mute that little chime that comes up every time that somebody starts. So that being said, let's go over introductions. So we've got, we'll start with Sam. This is no particular order, just the order in which we got the pictures, just so you know. So we got Sam Monenpour, we have Mario Franco, we've got Barrett Jeanian, we've got Candace and Taylor Jokoy. So we'll start with you, Sam. If you could just tell us, who you are, what you do, what you focus on, how long you've been at DigZ, just give us a nutshell of who you are so we can all
Sure. Yeah, so I've been with DigZ I think 4 months now, 4 or 5 months. It's been good. I get a consistent stream of leads. What I'm sort of working on nowadays is trying to sort of authenticate my leads better. I've been sort of dealing with some leads that are sort of not who they say they are, and kind of wasted my time a little bit. But other than that, everything's been good. I just closed the deal in Pasadena.
That's great, Sam. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. We're gonna go to Sam Monenpour. Would you go ahead and introduce yourself, Sam?
Sure. Sam Monenpour. I've been in the business for about 20 years. Office, retail, leasing, tenant rep for the most part, some landlord work. DigZ for about 2 years now. And as Sam Spencer just mentioned, this is the challenges of qualifying the tenants and the leads that come through, and really take them from that qualification point to being a real deal and working the deal point. But it's a great service, and I've been really happy with it so far, and I think we're going to expand some territory.
Thank you, Sam. Mario, how about yourself?
My name is Mario. Work for Monarch. I know I've been with Andrew for quite a while, and ultimately, I believe that this is a great system. I know in the beginning, trying to understand how the system works, how to deal with the clients was a process of understanding, but the ways that we found in terms of understanding how the clients work and how to feasibly introduce ourselves to them, I think we've sort of mastered. And I think if there's anything that I can say ultimately is that this does work. I believe ultimately there's two facets that you can do. Is that what we do here is that we meet the clients for a cup of coffee right off the bat, or if it's at their place. I always try to bring the direction of meeting the client at a location where that they admire and they love, so that we can understand them a little bit. But once we get the face-to-face with them, man, I can tell you, I know one of our agents, Pearl, she's about 80% close ratio in all the leads that we gave her. So she's doing quite well. There hasn't been a time that Pearl hasn't met one of the clients, but when she meets them and she gets to the point where it's personal, it's usually a slam dunk. And I just want to let you guys know ultimately that Digsy is a really good way of bringing the leads, because of the fact is it's a challenge for us to sort of juggle trying to find new leads. I found that Digsy is a good support here.
Hey, Mario, so really good information that you said on meeting. I want you to share that information a little bit later on. I'll prod you on that. Thank you for sharing that. Barrett, how about yourself? Can you give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah. What's up, guys? Barrett Geenan, on LDG Commercial in San Diego. Been in commercial real estate for about 10 years now. Started on the landlord side, and then started about 4 years ago, started my own company in tenant and buyer rep focused. Been with Digsy, I actually don't know how long it's been. It's been a while. I started with Digsy and with Andrew when it was kind of the old platform as well, and then transferred in this new platform as well. So been I think everyone ahead of me so far has said it. I'm pretty happy. I think we all have kind of, I think, just tempering expectations. If you expect every deal to be a layup, then I think you'll probably have a tough time. But through Andrew and his team, with these kind of webinars and best practices, I think we can all kind of get on the same page, and I think it's just vetting it out. I mean, there's definitely leads that go nowhere, and hopefully you don't spend too much time on it, but overall, I think it's been great for us. I know my young guy Nick does a great job with a lot of these leads that we get. It's really helped him kind of get a start in the business too. So we're very happy.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Barrett.
Yep.
And we're going to move over to Candace. How about yourself? Just tell us a brief little description and just overview on who you are and why you kick so much butt at Chorus.
My name is Candace. I work at Chorus Real Estate in Koreatown in Los Angeles. This is the second go with Digsy for me. The first time I was working in the LA market, and then I dropped off, and then I signed back up. Now I'm doing the South Bay. This time around, I feel like I know how to work the system a little bit better, and I'm qualifying the leads a little better. Like Mario said, I think if you can meet them face to face as soon as possible is best. A lot of the leads are just like clicking on buttons, so they're not who they say they are. So as soon as you can qualify the leads, I think that's the best. A lot of them are going to waste your time, but I mean, I don't really have any complaints as long as I realize that some of them are just clicking buttons and I qualify them and meet them as soon as possible. I'm enjoying Digsy. So.
Thank you, Candace. Taylor.
Yep. Hey, guys. My name's Taylor Jacoy. I work with Ron Feder at KW Commercial here in Calabasas. I work on industrial real estate. I don't really do much retail or office. I do represent a franchisee. They do retail, and I help them, but tend to stick in the Ventura area industrial market. Digsy, I don't know how long I've been doing it. Maybe like coming up on a year almost, something like that. Just takes a little bit of time, I'm sure, like everyone knows, to get the system down, right? A lot of time wasted, but once you sort of master it, it gets better. So I've had some good success using the program.
Awesome. So guys, I'm sure that some of the newer individuals that have joined Digsy are going through some challenges. So we're going to jump into that. We're going to jump into, we've already gone how long you've been with Digsy. Now we're going to go into challenges and frustration. So we're going to go in order. So we'll start with Sam. Why don't we talk about some of the challenges and frustrations that you had, then we'll go to Mario, and then we'll move on from there.
You want to clarify which Sam?
Yeah. Sam Monenpour, please.
The challenges clearly across the board with everybody is, people get on Digsy and they start clicking away. And you have a lot of people that aren't quite real, just kind of putting their foot in the water, testing it out to see if they have a project in mind, what it's going to run them. I had a lady just a couple of days ago who selected 15 to 30,000 feet with a budget of $10,000. And in reality, it was 1,500 feet of industrial space at a budget of like $3,000. It was completely different than what she'd filled out. But really, it's getting past that and getting to the meat of it, where you find some really good clients that come through. And then from there, it's just your own process starts, right? You're building a relationship. You're taking over and doing your thing. It's just that early on capturing the real deals. And meeting in person is fantastic. If you're really busy, it's hard to meet with everybody. It's just getting to that point where you've qualified and you know it's a real deal to get it to that next step and maybe meet, like they said, like Mario said, for coffee or just at their office. It really helps a lot. And I think the utmost importance, you have to call right away. I've found that if I wait a day, if I call just the next day, it's like they've forgotten they've even requested this thing. So as soon as you get the leads, get on it, make sure you contact them. And if it comes down to they're not in the area, they can't meet, send them that first survey and say, this is what I got for you. It's everything in the market. I'm only representing you on this, that kind of a conversation. And give them a pitch. Give them a pitch about the market that nobody else has. What's involved in leasing? What's involved in purchasing? What are the steps they can anticipate? What are the expectations? And manage that. A lot of these people who are going to Digsy, they don't have a relationship. I've found people, we've had leads from Digsy from the CEO of Warner Brothers, simply because his assistant didn't know anybody, picked up a computer and just reached out. It's crazy, some of the leads that come through, that they don't have a relationship and they don't understand the process, and you're taking them through that. But it's just, again, qualify and make sure it's the right person so it doesn't waste your time.
Great, thank you. Mario?
So is this about challenges and frustrations?
Yeah,
or?
so initially, we want to talk about some of the, just to make sure that, everybody has a different experience. Some people struggle with something. Like when you first started, what were like some of the things like, this is what's challenging about using Digsy and not necessarily using Digsy, but dealing with Digsy leads and some of the frustrations you had early on?
I think the biggest challenge is, I think everyone alluded to it, is understanding how to build a process behind it. I think ultimately when we first use Digsy, we're getting leads and we're just like, it's like time management. How do I build a time management behind this? I think that's the biggest frustrating part, and understanding how to absorb a process behind it. But ultimately, and just trying to find those solutions for it. But time management's one, and also qualifying. Those are the two biggest things. But you guys are so innovative in terms of how you guys provide the leads. It's just understanding the mindset of the client, so the frustrations start going down.
Thank you, Mario. Barrett, how about yourself? What were some of the frustrations? And I remember when you first started, it was much different than the way that we had worked leads before. So if you could just explain, like, when you first started with Digsy, what on this new system, what some of the challenges in having in dealing with a tenant, and some of them are flaky, etc. If you can explain some of that and the frustrations you guys had early on, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam and Mario both, and I'm sure as we kind of get through this, it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. So I'll try to keep it short, but I agree. I mean, I think we all get busy with our separate leads, referrals, things like that, and if you don't call almost immediately, I mean, I think the Digsy team, Andrew and his team, set out a pretty great set of deadlines that you are suggested to meet, and I think it's true. If you don't kind of call them within that first hour, my expectation or my thought of these people is that there's probably a reason why a lot of them, or the majority of them, are, not already working with the broker, or, have not jumped on a big site like LoopNet or something and have already, met another broker that's doing a deal. There's a lot of specific uses with a lot of the deals that come through. And so they're just kind of going to every single website and just typing in information. And the first person, I've gotten so many people where, I call right away and they said, "Oh, great. Which one is this again?" Because they filled out, 5 or 10 different deals. So, I think it was maybe Sam who said that calling right away is really important. Now the reality is, you could be in meetings, you could be on tours, most of the day, some of the day, and that's not always a reality. And then I would say more often than not, you get back at the end of the day, you try making some calls, and then those are the ones that, maybe take 3, 4, 5 times to follow up with before you get a response. And then it's usually, hey, I already found something, or I'm already working with somebody else. So that's important. Two, I think just developing the Mario said it too, is we found the most success when we do make that initial contact and say, hey, let's meet for coffee. Let's or at your office, my office, whatever is most convenient for them. And we usually have a list, but we try not to send that list. We try to actually meet with them, print it out, and then go sit down with them and discuss. At that point, that's where we bring our market insight, and really just open it up to them and show them on our, bring our laptops with us, a printout for them to look at, and start talking about a few of the properties that we think are good fits, and really kind of dig in. And once they see that product right there, then you can kind of get a real-time reaction of, is this a real deal? Here's a perfect property that fits all your criteria. Are you really excited about it, or are you finding any excuse to say, I don't know if that works. I'm really more like this or this price. But I will say that, when we get busy, it's really hard to maintain that, and get out and meet with everybody all the time. So, it's a balance, and I would say we don't always, we're not always able to do it that way, but that really is the best way to get these deals done quickly or move on from them if they're not deals.
Thank you, Barrett. Candice, What were some of the challenges and frustrations you had?
For me, early on, when I first signed up with Dixie, I thought that you guys were pre-qualifying these leads. I didn't realize that it was just people clicking on buttons and filling in sometimes correct and incorrect information.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we actually do filter out the ones that look hokey, and we do ask some questions.
Okay.
But still, with that filtering that we do up front, what you're experiencing is what gets through.
Yeah. But now, I can tell the real ones. I can tell if someone's put in fake phone number, fake email. That's the first filter for me to know if it's a real lead or not. At first, I was just accepting all leads, but now that I'm narrowing down to a certain minimum of square footage and different things like that, I think I'm having a better experience with Digsy now.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we're going to go to Taylor. What were some of the frustrations and challenges that you and your team had early on?
Frustrations, not to touch on what everyone else has said, I would say reaching out to people. Did you in fact experience a lot of things that the other group has said? Yeah, definitely. I would say the biggest frustration for me would be calling someone, they're open to meeting you, checking out some spaces. I like to work on an exclusive basis. I've had it happen to me way too many times where I show people space and then they call the landlord directly or go behind my back in some fashion. So unless I can get them to sign something with me, I don't work with them. Does it lose me business? Probably, but does it make sure that I get, I don't waste my time? Yes. And I like to not waste my time. So there are probably deals that I've thrown away because of it. But I sit down and I present it to them in a way where, they can go work with 100 other people, or they can work with me and I'll help them find a space. So that's been my frustration, is getting someone to work on an exclusive basis with me. But once, we develop that relationship and we meet in person or something like that, most of the time I find that, they're willing to work with me.
And, it sounds like a lot of the stuff that what we're talking about right now has to do with, really developing that relationship. That's what I kind of, filtering, making sure that you assess whether, hey, do I work on this lead or not? And then really trying to develop that relationship and that trust. That's what I'm hearing from the group right now. If anybody thinks on the panel that I misunderstood that, please let me know.
No, I think you're right. And I think also a lot of it on my end too is at least I think I get too connected to some of the clients. So I feel bad for them. You want to help them find a space. And then, there's a gentleman, he had a bankruptcy like 5 years ago, and I was trying to help him find space. And it was just the biggest waste of my time, but I did it because I felt bad for the guy. So starting to lean more on stuff like that. And
you got to be careful with your emotions, because some people are just awesome people, but you can't help them.
Right.
Taylor, how long did it take you to close your first deal?
I think I signed up and I got the first one actually done within like 2 weeks or something like that.
That's one of the fastest I've seen is 30 days. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
That's great. What about you, Candace?
About a month to close my first deal.
And Mario, do you remember? I mean, I know you've been with us for a while, so.
No, I honestly don't. I feel bad that I don't have an answer, but I don't.
No worries. Sam, how about you?
Yeah, I don't either. It's been a long time.
Barrett?
And a lot of deals.
Same boat. I want to say it was maybe like a month and a half, 2 months, somewhere in that range.
Hey, so you guys notice that the young individuals totally knew when they close their first deal, but as we get older and older.
Thank you very
much. That's because we can still count on our fingers how many we've done. No.
That's because we have kids. That's funny. All right, so let's talk about, we kind of touch on some of these things now, but we talked about some of the challenges, some of the leads not being real and things like that. Let's just talk a little bit more and focus on, okay, we understand that these were the challenges, really figuring out what leads were real, really figuring out how to secure that relationship and that trust. What were some of the ways that you overcame that, Taylor?
Meeting with them, definitely, lots of emails and phone conversations, and they preferred, I say, hey, can we meet? And it's, oh, I'm busy. I'm available on phone. And that really gets you nowhere besides conversation. I think that's all it is just conversation. It's not even positive conversation. It's just, hey, are you still looking? Yeah, cool. Thanks for helping. I appreciate it. But they have no idea what I'm doing, right? It's nice to get them in person. I would say that's probably the key. They can meet me. I think that's a big part of it. They can see what I'm about and just my whole body language, everything about me. Do you trust this person? Do you want them to work for you? And I want them to, to do all of those things. If they don't feel comfortable working with me, there's a disconnect in any way, then I think it's hard to get a deal done like that. They're uncommunicative, or they only want to talk to you at certain hours, or email only. And I can meet on Saturday, but that's it. Whatever it is. And I'm available to do stuff like that. But again, people who are willing to work with you rather than you just working for them, that's what I found to be.
Oh, that's actually, that's valuable advice. Thank you. Candace?
Yeah. I would have to agree. I think that meeting them and the people that are willing to go on tours and they actually want to close a deal and move, those are the ones that, keep it going. I like to meet with them and set up tours as soon as possible. I don't want to deal with time wasting or any of that stuff. So yeah, meeting people is very important.
Mario?
Ultimately, the way we've sort of figured it out was interesting, just because of the fact is that we went around and we went ahead and did two methods. The first method that we did was, if there was anything that was out of state, we did a video chat with them. The first thing that we wanted to do and understand is that if a person is ultimately interested, they're going to take some of their time to meet with us. And so if they're out of state, we did very similar to what you see right here in terms of Zoom. We'll use Zoom, and then we'll use CoStar or however to look at some properties or some areas that we felt like could work with them. But if they're local, the first thing I would say, like I said in the beginning, is, what is your ideal spot? What is the traffic that you're looking for? Let's meet there. And usually if they're moving forward and they're ready for the space, they would meet us there. And that's where we found our great success. And if they say, well, I'm not interested for another 6 months or so, then I would just do a complimentary, just quick search on CoStar and just shoot it out to them and see what they thought, if I could bridge a conversation. But I think Andrew came up with a good point that we utilize is that if I can't get a hold of them, he'll just do a drip campaign for us. So I'll maybe do a couple, 3, 4 phone calls to us. And at that point, if they're not, responding back to us, we'll give them back to Andrew and he'll do a drip campaign, meaning that he'll email them for us and get them back engaged. But, I also have to take in consideration one fact is that I had a client that we're going back and forth for literally 3 months. And so ultimately, she still went with us. I understand as a business owner that, time is valuable. They're doing their business. There's priorities, of course. And so I have to consider those factors, and maybe today is not that right time. So I'll just throw it back to Andrew, and when they're ready, they'll come back to us, and Andrew will just ship it back to us when that time comes. So, that's the old pipeline theory right there. So if you guys don't use that drip line, maybe you guys can consider it at the same time.
Yeah, and just to mention on that, so whenever you try on 5 different occasions to 7 different occasions to reach somebody, what you can do is when you log into your dashboard, you can mark them unresponsive. If you're out and about and you don't have time to go to your dashboard, you can just send whoever your point of contact is here at Digsy, whether it's myself or Evan or Vita or Megan or whoever it is, just send us a note and then we'll go ahead and start that follow-up. So that way you can focus all your energy on real leads that you're pursuing that have merit, and then we can see if we can reel these leads back in. To give you a metric, if you guys give us 10 unresponsive leads, usually we're bringing back to you anywhere between 2 to 3 leads that are saying, oh, I was busy, sorry, I was traveling. So I do encourage you to do that, because that's you guys are already paying for the leads technically. So it's a way for us to help you get more ROI out of your investment. Sam, what about you?
For me, it really comes down to the relationship. It's all it is. We're a service provider and we're building a relationship. If people are coming through who are not serious about what they're doing, at some point or another, they're going to screw you by wasting your time. So it's a numbers game. You go in, and it's going to make some people cringe, but I really don't push the exclusive angle. If I get it, great. If not, I'm building a relationship, and like Taylor said, either they want to work with me or they don't. And we're going to move on. We're going to go to the next one, and we're going to knock them out, because, again, it just comes down to building that relationship and doing the volume of deals that you can do. Digsy is a supplement to our business. It's not our business, not our 100% of our business. It helps us grow our business and have other leads. But end of the day, you're carrying through all the relationships you have on your own, and you're adding to it with a tool like Digsy. So really, yes, qualify in the beginning as much as you can. End of the day, there's only so much you can do, right? And just make sure that it's somebody you want to work with and somebody that wants to work with you. If you see that they're not really serious, it's going to be a time to move on at some point.
Thank you, Sam. Barrett?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same thing to say about kind of everyone else. I think the one thing maybe just to add to that I've found maybe challenging, or that maybe loses a little bit of trust, just to maybe steer in a different direction. I find that I know for a while, one of the best practices that you guys outline is making that initial contact and then getting a list of properties to them quickly to look at. Mm-hmm. And we've all touched base about trying to go and meet quickly, that type of thing. But occasionally the reality, for me at least, is that I'm really busy at times, and I can't always spend the time, or maybe it's an excuse, but so I do. Sending a list quickly. Unfortunately for me in San Diego, there's just like everywhere, I'm sure it's a crazy market. A lot of stuff either goes quickly, or just frankly, that's kind of a landlord broker trick, is to kind of leave listings on. So you get a lot of stale listings. And if you're just plugging in, hey, this person's looking for 5,000 to 7,000 square feet, and just doing a quick CoStar report, since CoStar and LoopNet merged, the reality is, anyone can pretty much, for the most part, go on to LoopNet themselves. And I've had a lot of times where I've gotten caught with that, where, we all, you make contact right away. You kind of give them your pitch as to why they should work with you, trust you, all that. And then, out of necessity, just out of time, you send them a list. And I've had a few people, we haven't done this in a long time now, but, I actually had to do it just because of time about a month ago. And one guy was like, hey man, thanks for the list, but I've already seen all of these. And so that's part of why I think meeting somebody in person and maybe not sending that list is kind of one of the ways to kind of keep that trust, at least. And I always tell people right away, I'm like, I'll try to get it to you quickly, but I try to give a more reasonable time frame, because if I know I'm busy, I might tell them, hey, I'm going to get you a list, but it might be 48 hours, and here's why. And I always like to, before I send any list, I narrow it down to the ones that I think are the best fit. And then I call and make sure that those, or have my assistant call and make sure that all those properties that we're sending are actually available and actually could work, so that whether I ultimately, out of necessity, quickly send them an email with it or actually go meet them in person, we're actually talking about listings where there's an actionable, potential of, hey, we can go tour these tomorrow if you want, versus, a couple of times where I've gotten caught where I just send something and someone's like, hey, I've already called these 3 listings. The broker said that they're no longer available. Do you have a different outlook on it? Or are they telling me, are they bullshitting me? And then you have to kind of go back with egg on your face and be like, well, actually, no, you're right, I'm wrong. And I think, sometimes that makes it hard to build trust if they know more than you do sometimes.
Hey, Barrett, thank you for sharing that. Actually, we removed a long time ago sending the survey because of a lot of the stuff that you reported.
Right.
Mario, I think, was one of the ones that were very vocal early on, along with some other individuals, in sending the surveys. And what we found, thanks to you guys and the rest of our customers, is that really securing the relationship by creating that trust, knowing whether you want to work with somebody first, was a good indicator whether, because a survey can take anywhere between 5 minutes, depending on how much time you want to invest in it, all the way up to an hour. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. All right, so let's go to the next one. So here's the number one thing is, when you get leads, how do you get these people to respond to you and engage with you? So we're going to start with Barrett, and then we're going to go left this way.
Getting leads to respond.
You get a lead, you call, you don't get a hold of them. What are usually the tactics that you do?
So as soon as I get it, I call the number, and then I immediately follow up with an email. I have a kind of a templated email that's kind of my own, kind of quick and easy. Cause I know obviously Digsy, when you get that lead, they make an intro, you guys make an intro email as well. So I don't want to blow them up with a big long one. It's a couple sentences just saying, hey, I just left you a voicemail, basically wanted to connect. Hopefully, we can find some time today or tomorrow. If I don't hear from you, I'll call you again tomorrow. And I just go that route. I think I've actually don't know if I've really used, Mario, that was a good point to kind of bring it back when you don't get a connection, to put it back in Digsy's hands and let them do the drip. But we usually hold on to it for about 6. Really, it's 6 times, and I'll go every other day. Typically, sometimes it's every day, but I think I try like maybe every 24 hours for the first 2 or 3 times, and then I start to spread it out to every other day. And then, last time it's like, then I maybe give them a couple days and do one last call, and then at that point I just drop it if I don't get a hold of anybody.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that, Sam.
Yeah, it's multiple hit points. Calls, emails, follow-ups, and end of the day goes back to, if the person is not serious, you may not be getting a call back. Move on.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mario?
I text. Usually I'll do a call, but texting is, everyone responds to text quicker than emails. Sometimes they don't answer because of the fact that your phone number is not something that's stimulating to their mind because they've never seen it before. So texting is very quick for me. And usually they'll respond back to at the same time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. Candice?
I call first. If they don't answer, I'll leave a voicemail, and then I'll follow up with a text, and then I email, and then I just do that process over and over again for a few days. And then I even send it back to you guys. If they respond to you, you send it back to me, and then I reach out, and then they respond. So I just do that process.
And how many times do you persist before sending it back to the Digsy team?
I do it for a week or two.
Okay, got it. And Taylor, what about yourself?
I usually call within the first hour, and if they don't pick up, leave a voicemail. I'll typically call back again later that day, maybe depending on the time I get the lead. If they don't pick up, then I'll email them, call them again tomorrow. I'm pretty persistent. I don't care calling people. If they're not answering my phone's calls or responding to I'll text as a last resort. If they don't respond to any of it, I'll report it unresponsive. But I have found, like you mentioned, people are busy a lot of the times, especially, what we do, they're people, business owners, they have kids and the kids are in summer and they're doing, et cetera, whatever, maybe on trips. So I don't report it unresponsive right away. I just actually called a guy that hadn't been calling me in like 3 weeks. And now he wants to sublease his space and help him find another one. And so it could turn into sort of a chain of things. And so it's sort of glad that I held on to that. And just my persistence, the first thing he said is, "Thank you for being persistent." Everyone else sort of calls, leaves me a voicemail. That's the end of it. He's got to start over. So being persistent, I think persistence is key. And as long as you don't annoy them, there's a fine line between pissing people off and being persistent. So if you can, that's what I try to do. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sales statistic, and this is a statistic, is 41% of salespeople don't follow up.
Right.
It's crazy. So let's do this. Let's all text message first and then report back to Mario to see if it works. All right. So let's go to the next one. Next question. So this is one of those things that are polarizing for a lot of people, right? Is how to get the meeting. Some people have a really easy time getting meetings. Some people don't. What are some of the pushback that you get? How do you overcome that? How do you go about getting meetings and securing that relationship? We'll start with you, Taylor.
It's probably different for me than a lot of the other guys. You could say a little bit more free time than maybe some of you other guys who have a bunch more listings. I represent a lot more tenants. I have a couple of listings, but I have a lot of free time and I spend a lot of it canvassing, and then come back and we'll send greeting cards, etc. You said the question was, how do I get my meeting? Getting the meeting.
How do you secure a meeting with a lead?
To be honest, I just have a little bit more free time, so I'll let them know when you're available. You let me know, and unless I have somewhere to be, I'll go to them. I'll meet them wherever they can, wherever we need to meet.
Do they give you pushback? Like, no, just send me a list of properties. I mean, how do you?
Well, if they do that, I won't. Like I said, give me a call back when you're ready. I like to work with people who have a need and not a want. I try to evaluate that pretty quickly. If people who want a space is just okay, well, I would love to want to help you find one. And people who need a space, they fits the floor plan. For most of these industrial spaces, it's just an office and a warehouse and a bathroom. You can unload and load your trucks, and that's it. People who say, well, I don't like the window here, the door here. It's, unless there's something available, I'll look. If there's nothing available, I'll keep you informed via email, and then I won't really stay on top of it that much. But people who are, like I said, working with me and they're willing to meet, based on when they're available, I can meet them. And then from there, I think I've had some good success. It's all about I try to make myself available to them. At least for the first meeting, you know what I mean? I'm available. I'm here. I work for you. We can work together and try to establish that relationship right away.
Thank you. Candace, how about yourself?
For me, I usually ask on our first conversation, like, when are you generally available? And then they'll tell me, oh, I'm available this day, this hour, and I'll try to set up a tour as quick as possible for that time. That's usually how I do my first meetings. I haven't really done any coffee meetings before, because I try to get a tour as soon as possible to see if they're really serious. So
walk us through that process. So you get a lead, you call, you get a hold of them. What happens next?
When I talk to them, I ask them, like, how soon do you need to move? If they're like, oh, my lease ends next month, then I know they're serious. If they're like, oh, the next 3 to 6 months, then it's like, okay, well, I'll call you in a few months, or I'll call you in a few weeks, So I try to work with people who really need to move so that I know it's going to actually, be worth my time.
And then after you determine that, what do you do?
I set up tours.
You set up tours, and they haven't selected the properties themselves. You just set up a tour.
I send them a short list of little things, and then I try to set up tours as soon as possible.
Okay, Got it. So you do send a short list and you select some properties with them. And then now do you send it to them and they report back to you which ones they want to see, or do you jump on the phone with them and go over the survey?
I send it to them and they select which ones they like.
Okay.
Like today I have, like when we get off here, I have to go to the gym and then I have to rush to Torrance. So I'm on a tight schedule today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you making the time to share this with the rest of the Digsy crew. So much appreciated. How about yourself, Mario? How do you get meetings?
I sort of vet them out in terms of, I throw out two options for them. I always start with option one. You want to do a quick online meeting. That's sort of pull and tug method, meaning to understand how important it is, very similar to Kansas, understanding like when's your lease done. Or like I said in the beginning, I always tell them, let's meet at a location that you ultimately envision your property going to be to look like and within the traffic, because I'm trying to hit their emotions, because ultimately everyone has their vision of what they want. The question is if I can get them to that exact point of where their vision has been inspired or has been created, it allows me to build a trust factor. This is what we're going to try to find you at the same time, because ultimately I just don't want to waste time trying to find something that I don't understand what they're trying to look for. I rather go where the vision started, and that usually gets me to that point where I can get a meeting with them.
So let's walk through that process. You get a lead from Digsy, right? You call, you get a hold of them, you ask them, what do you ask when you first get a hold of them?
I'm just asking their requirements. I'm asking them, what's your business about? Where you looking to go to in terms of cities? I'm also trying to understand ultimately how long have they been in business. I'm trying to vet them out as much as possible, and then I start bringing imageries into their minds of, what is this going to look like for you? What do you want to do? Are you doing TIs? Are you going to create this? You just want to move in ready? And then once I understand where they're going based off the conversation, I can identify exactly what they're looking for, and then I just go with the kill of, what are your top 5 places that you've been inspired for, and then I'll usually go with 1 or 2 to meet them in those locations.
Yeah. And if, for example, they don't have any, what do you do at that time?
Well, if they don't have any, I've already, based off before I call them, I've already mapped out that. I already have 3 of my properties that I could possibly push them to at the same time.
Okay.
So if they don't have it, that's always my option B. Let's meet here.
Okay, got it. So do you show them the properties first, or do you just say, hey, meet me at this location?
Meet me here, because ultimately I'm going to be able to lessen my time of searching for them if I know what I can inspire, what they're inspired by, what inspires them, what is it that they want in life, and what do they need, of course.
And how do you determine which leads you spend the time doing that and not? Because you don't necessarily want to push away some business, but it might not be a high priority based on the limited time and resources that you have. Like, what do you do if you can't meet that person? Like, what's a step? If you can't go meet them at a location like that, what do you do that you found that helps you convert that lead into commission?
So if they don't want to meet at the location, then what I usually state is, okay, so
it's not. Let me repeat the question. It's not that they don't want to meet you. It's much more that you don't have the time to go out there and meet them at that location. Let's say the lead size is smaller, they sound legit, or they're great, but you just don't. It just doesn't make rational sense for you to go meet them at a location like that. You have.
So if the lead's small, then I'll just go ahead and send them property.
Okay.
If the deal is extremely small, and I'll take their criteria down, and then I'll also ask them to email me their top 5 list of what they're liking, so I can understand. I'll go through Yelp, I'll go through Google, I'll look at the interiors at that point. Then I can identify what they're looking for, because I'll Google Earth it at that point to understand the traffic. I'll understand if it's a shopping center, if it's an office, or however, and trying to geolocate them into something very similar at the same time. So smaller deals, yes, via email.
Great. And did we lose Sam Monenpour? Are you still on here, Sam? Oh, there you are. All right. So we're going to skip to, I can't hear you yet. But
you're on mute.
Yeah, there you are. Hey, Barrett, how about yourself? Like, how do you go about getting these meetings? Because I remember early on it was harder to get meetings. And then what kind of changed for you to try to get in front of them?
I don't know if it was harder. I think, again, a lot of people, everyone's kind of said probably what I would say. I think the only other thing that I would throw in there is I usually, and again, there's a decent amount that are startups or brand new businesses, but the ones that are existing businesses or have been around, that's one of the fact finding questions I ask right away. Or a lot of times you can see it when the lead comes through, but I usually say, hey, I'm actually going to be in the area, whether or not I actually am or not. I always find that our team, the best way to get you the best properties is to kind of see your current operation, what you guys have going on. So I'd love to just swing by and that was, we can kind of knock two birds with one stone. You can meet me, see if you trust me and believe what I'm saying, kind of thing. But I usually try to do that and go see their space, because it does. I'm a visual person. I like to see what's going on. I do office and industrial. I don't do any retail. So it is, while Google Maps does work, you can't really get into the, other than seeing the exterior, you can't really get in and see their space. If it's a really small deal, I probably don't do that. But if it's a, decent size, I usually just use that as an excuse. And I say, hey, I'm going to swing by. Well, if we can meet for 5 minutes, or I can just poke my head in, great. And then I usually bring my list with me, because most people say that they're really busy. And if you just say, hey, I'm just going to come by, just peek my head in for 5 minutes, I'll just shake your hand and go. If they agree to that, usually they have some time. If once I bring the list and say, hey, I've got a couple properties that actually might be worth taking a look at. And then they go, all right, yeah, you're coming to my office. And then we sit down, and that's where we kind of start building trust.
Isn't it funny? It's just about getting your foot in the door, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Standard sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Barry, how do you evaluate whether you want to make the time to meet with a lead or not? Because you get different sizes, different ranges. Like, how do you prioritize which ones you're actually going to meet and which ones you're not gonna really put that time and that much time and effort into?
Well, right away, I got a younger guy, an associate who, just starting out in the business. So I think, my time is spent, on a lot of existing deals, referrals, things like that outside of Digsy. So I will, I cherry pick. I pick kind of the larger deals. And then, I will. I throw in. I kind of like it just to kind of keep me on my toes. But I'll do some of the smaller deals. But I would say I usually always make the first call when I get a lead, and then based off that initial contact, I kind of decide if I have the ability or time to work on it. And if not, sometimes it's because of my choice. Sometimes I just know, even if it's a great lead and I'd love to work on it, I just don't have the time. And that's an opportunity for my younger guy to take it. He's cutting his teeth right now, just grinding, trying to make things happen. And I always tell him, I think the biggest, deal for someone just starting out, if it's really is something that they see themselves in the long term. If you're looking short term, then it's a totally different experience. But long term, the most value is not necessarily, and I say this take it with a grain of salt, but not necessarily looking at just a commission, as it is more doing as many deals as possible. Because, like everyone says, if you're just starting out, you need 2, 3, 4 years to kind of really ramp up and make things work. So doing as many deals as possible, that just widens the net, and your experience, your ability to meet and connect with people, and also get referrals. My young guy's done, a decent amount of deals, and they've, through Digsy, closed deals, and they've called them and said, hey, you guys did such a great job. My friend is looking for space too. And we've gotten a couple of referrals from some of the deals that we've closed with Digsy. And that's now a good thing, because that's now his deal that he created. And so it just adds kind of motivation for him, and it just kind of snowballs from there.
Got it. And Sam,
So,
how about yourself? How do you go about securing the meetings?
I think everybody's pretty much touched up on most of the items. The only thing I would really add is that first conversation you have is really very important. It's your first opportunity to express your knowledge and show your knowledge to the client and win them over, right? So really go through your talking points, show them what you're going to add, because it's true, they could go on LoopNet, they could go on other sites and get properties, but what are you bringing to the table? If you're a tenant rep, you can express that none of these properties are, represented by me. I'm only representing you, and I've got your best interest in mind. That kind of conversation of here's what goes into a lease points. Here's the different items that you need to be or TIs and all this stuff that you can go through and explain structures of triple net and gross and full service, etc. That I think is really important to get to that meeting.
Got it. So we're going to go over this. What's very quickly for this, because I want to make sure we get to Q&A. Best practices on surveys. Sam, send or don't send right after the conversation?
It depends on the conversation, really. There's if you've got somebody that's engaging with you, they're ready to either meet with you and tour right away. I love that. I want to look at spots tomorrow. I want to look at spots in a couple of days. Great. Here's what's in the market. Here's what's available. Or I'm just kind of starting to feel it out. This is where I want to go. Okay, let's meet in person and talk first.
Got it. Okay. So it just depends on the intensity. Yeah. What about you, Barrett? Send survey, don't send survey?
Yeah. Same. Like I mentioned earlier, I try not to, but it really at the end, it comes down to what Sam was saying. It just depends on the conversation that you have, and I would agree with Sam.
Mario?
Survey or no survey?
Yeah, after the first conversation.
No survey unless they're like super desperate and the deal's big. Yeah. Then I'll abide by their rules for a moment of time, but I will always rein back the horse when it's time to need to be.
So you try to meet with them then?
Yes.
Okay, Candace?
No survey.
Got it. And what about you? Well, if you don't send a survey, Candace, you had mentioned earlier that when you get on the phone with somebody, when do you send a survey? Because you were sending a survey to try to get a tour, right? How do you determine when you send it and when you don't send it?
It just depends. It depends on the customer. Like if someone's like moving as soon as possible or their lease is expiring soon, you can send a survey, but every circumstance is different. It depends on time and different things like that.
Cool. Taylor?
Again, I think it's all dependent upon the conversation that you have first with that person. Usually right away. Sometimes if I can, I ask them if they're available right now. If they're working in their shop, I think someone mentioned, and just pop my head by for 5 minutes and just see myself what your shop's looking like. Maybe print out a list before you go in. Maybe not bring it in. Depend upon the conversation before you leave. Oh, by the way, I forgot this list. Here's a list. Depending on that conversation, for me, if they're willing to work with me, like I said, I work on an exclusive basis. If it's more so, oh yeah, I called Mike and George and Joe Blow also, and I'm calling you too. Anything you bring me, I'll work with you on. But anything these guys bring me, maybe I won't send them a survey. It's going to be dependent upon the conversation.
Cool. All right. And when do you give up on a lead, Sam?
Pretty early on, if I could qualify them.
Yeah, and I'm talking about when do you give up on? That's a good question. So there's two things: after you work with them and before you work with them. Meaning, before you work with somebody, like how many times do you reach out to them before giving up, and when do you give up on an active lead? Sam, can you hear me?
If I'm not getting a call back, if I don't have the respect time, yeah, can you not hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think my connection went down for a second.
Yeah.
So really, it depends. If you're not getting the respect of a call back, that's not a serious person. I know, and persistence does help, but if they're not calling back, forget it.
How many tries? Getting a call back,
sorry.
How many tries do you give?
At least 3 or 4 emails, phone calls, texts. But if you're not getting a call back, no. If you're getting a call back and the conversation is, well, I'm not quite ready yet, I want to test it out. Sure, I've waited months. I got a call yesterday from a client that I've been waiting maybe 3 or 4 months, and it's a real client, but they're just trying to figure out their franchise components from New York. And sure, we'll wait and play along. But if you're not getting that respect of actually getting a call back and the person is not serious, don't waste time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. How about you, Barrett? How many times do you persist before giving up on trying to get a hold of somebody?
I think I said it earlier, but usually around 6.
Okay. What about you? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, go ahead. No, it's fine. Go ahead.
All right. Mario, how about you?
I'll just use your drip.
So 5 to 6 times, and then you'll do it?
Before I do it? Oh, yeah, 5 to 6 times. And then in terms of giving up, in terms of an active deal, I don't know. It's hard to say because I have a deal right now that we've been looking for like 3 months, I believe. And I think we should close it this week.
Nice.
So I don't believe I don't like giving up because that affects my ego. I don't know.
What about you? What about you, Candice?
I have given up on leads that are non-responsive. Like I said earlier, I'll try to stay in contact with them or try to get a hold of them for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then if I don't hear from them, I just say unresponsive.
Got it. Perfect. And Taylor?
Again, I think it's pretty dependent. A lot of it, I think, for us as agents and brokers using Digsy is reliant upon how using our insight on what we think they're thinking. I think that's a big part of it. I have given up on a lead in the first maybe 48 hours if they haven't gotten back to me. If I dial the number and it goes to a wrong number, I'll send them an email. It's 1,000 feet, 45 miles away from me. They want 1-year deal. Get out of here. But I've also I'm very persistent. I got a lead 6 months ago or something, showed them 15,000 square feet here in Calabasas. They stopped talking to me. I kept calling them every single day, and they called me back a couple of days ago. Now we have an offer on the place. So, I mean, it could, like I said, I don't give up. I don't mind. It's not my intention to piss people off, but if, you signed up on the website, you're looking for help, and I'm here to give you my help. And if you don't want it, tell me, at least give me the courtesy and let me know, or I'm going to keep bugging you until you let me know. And it's worked for me. So
that's great. All right. So we are now on, thank you for sticking around, guys. It's been almost exactly an hour, or actually it's exactly an hour. But we're just going to go to Q&A right now. So you can actually ask. I know that Candice, you got to get going, right? So if you want to step out, go ahead and do that. Don't worry about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
If anybody has questions, you can raise your hand, or you can just message on the chat, and would love to answer any questions that you may have for the panel.
I have a question. Sure.
Yeah, Taylor.
Do all you other guys, am I the only one that likes to work on an exclusive basis? There's not every single time do I have them sign something. There are times when, like I said, everything is personal. I mean, there are times when I feel like we have a mutual trust, and they're not working with anyone else. I've established that. Then I have some trust for them. I won't make them sign something. 80 or 90% of the time I do have them sign something, because being Digsy, the first time I call them, who is Taylor? No one knows who Taylor is. Who is this guy calling me? Just wants to help me. So I try to do that, and I've had good success with it. But I just want to know maybe what you guys do. How do you overcome that if you don't get them to sign something? I mean, I've probably had it happen 5 or 6 times when a landlord has gone behind my back and called my tenant, and they've, big deals, and I've missed out. And it's just because I don't have people sign something. People can be assholes in this world, right? So it happens all the time. At least, how do you guys avoid that?
So, how many times have you had a signed agreement and not gotten paid?
And have not gotten paid?
Correct. Right. So even with a signed agreement doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get paid.
Right.
To me, it really comes to having that relationship.
Right.
Yeah. I had a deal last week that we closed, $50,000 commission. They filed bankruptcy out. Last year we had $130,000 commission, bankruptcy, gone. So really, I think, in my opinion, it comes down to the relationship. If you can get it, great, always get it. And I'm not discouraging exclusives, but to me, it's the volume, do the deal, build the relationship, do a good enough job that they're going to come back to you and they're going to send you referrals.
Sure.
Yeah. And if somebody really wants to stick it to you, they're going to stick it to you. It just is that way. It's a hard part of this business. It really is.
To answer your question, I'm not in brokerage anymore, but I would get an exclusive every time. And now that, and Sam's not the only guy who has mentioned it. Now looking back, I probably waited too long to jumpstart on a deal when I already had a good relationship with people, but I would try to get it signed like on the spot. And if they didn't do it and I had trust, like I would move forward.
Right.
But there were so many times where I still got screwed. I would run around with 10, 15,000 square foot deals, and those exclusives usually have cancellation clauses on it, depending on how much teeth you want to put in there.
Right.
Because they really don't know you.
Right.
But when I was brought into the business, when I was trained and I was a broker, I always asked for exclusives. What I found out when I started Digsy is that rarely anybody uses exclusives, with the exception of, traditional 10 rep guys like Studley, which is now Seville's, Cressa, Hughes Medino, all those groups. So that's just my feedback on it.
The way I see it is, sort of like just the first, are we about each other? Sort of, I guess. I mean, can we hang together? Is this guy that wants to work with me? Can we work with him? And if there's a sense, I don't want to sign that. I don't sign anything. No. It's sort of, okay, you want space and you want help, but you don't care if it's from me or from Sam or from Barrett or from Andrew. And that's where my issue is, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that I ended up adding to my exclusive was, and they made it easier to get him assigned, but once they start working with you and they know that you know their preferences, as long as you're doing a good job, they'll do that. Right. One thing that I did is you gave them the ability to kind of leave if you're not doing your job. So you kind of stress on that.
I do that. We can. I do that.
But looking back, I mean, Sam's right. It's just all boils down to really the relationship and that. Because I mean, I got screwed with exclusives too. But I would definitely ask other people and see how they. About things. If anybody in the attendees has a question, please raise your hand or send us a message. And if I don't see, let me see if anybody asking anything. I don't see anybody asking any questions. So let me unmute everybody. Does anybody have any questions?
10 seconds. Oh.
Let's see if anybody talks. So you guys are all unmuted.
Yeah.
And open it and see.
All right, so it doesn't sound like anybody has questions for us. That means we did a good job. So, all right, guys. Thank you all for your time. Have a fantastic weekend. If you guys want to connect with anybody here on this group, please email us at Digsy. We'll be happy to connect you guys, and you guys can hook up at your convenience. But thank you so much, guys, for sharing this information with the rest of the Digsy family. So I really appreciate it, and God bless you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to be
Bye.
our